September 23, 1947. Gallagher's Steakhouse, Manhattan. 9:47 p.m. Lucky Luciano was eating dinner when Vincent Mad Dog Coll walked through the door drunk, loud, and looking for trouble. Lucky had returned to New York illegally. He'd been deported to Italy in 1946, but came back for one secret meeting with the commission. Nobody was supposed to know he was in the city. But Coll saw him, recognized him, and decided this was his moment to prove he wasn't afraid of anybody. What Coll didn't know was that insulting Lucky Luciano in public was the last mistake he'd ever make, and the 6 words Lucky said in response would haunt Coll for the remaining 72 hours of his life. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand who Vincent Mad Dog Coll was. Vincent Coll was 32 years old in 1947. A violent, unpredictable enforcer who'd earned his nickname by killing without hesitation or remorse. He'd worked for various families since the 1930s, currently with the Genovese organization. Coll was useful because he'd do things other men wouldn't: kill witnesses, intimidate judges, hurt civilians if necessary. He was a blunt instrument, effective but crude. By 1947, Coll had started to believe his own reputation, started to think that being feared made him powerful, started to think he was untouchable. He wasn't. September 23, 1947. Lucky Luciano's illegal visit to New York. Lucky had been deported to Italy 18 months earlier, but commission business required his presence. A dispute between the Gambino and Colombo families that only Lucky could settle. So Lucky came back, secretly, flew into a private airfield in New Jersey, came into Manhattan for one night, one meeting, then back to Italy, before anyone knew he'd been there. The meeting was set for 10 p.m. at Gallagher's Steakhouse, neutral territory, private back room, no witnesses. Lucky arrived early, sat in the main dining room with Frank Costello and Meyer Lansky, ordered dinner while they waited for the other commission members. That's when Vincent Coll walked in. Coll was drunk, not falling down drunk, but enough to be loud, aggressive, and stupid. He'd been drinking at a bar down the street, celebrating some job he'd just finished. He walked into Gallagher's looking for a table, saw Lucky Luciano sitting there, calm as could be, eating a ribeye steak. For a moment Coll just stared. Lucky Luciano, the man who'd created the commission, the man who'd ruled the Mafia for 15 years, the legend. And then Coll's alcohol-soaked brain had a thought. What if I showed everyone I'm not afraid of Lucky Luciano? He walked over to Lucky's table, didn't wait to be invited, just walked right up. Well, well, Coll said loudly, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. Lucky Luciano, I thought you got kicked out of the country. The restaurant went quiet. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Everyone knew who Lucky was. Everyone knew you didn't approach him uninvited. Lucky looked up slowly, studied Coll, then went back to cutting his steak. You're drunk, Lucky said calmly. Go home. I'm drunk, Coll laughed. Too loud, maybe, but at least I'm allowed to be in New York. What are you doing here? Thought the government threw your ass out. Frank Costello started to stand. Meyer Lansky's hand moved toward his jacket, but Lucky raised one finger. Stop, I'm having dinner, Lucky said, and you're interrupting it. Coll leaned on Lucky's table. You know what I think. I think you're a washed-up has-been. I think the young guys run things now. I think you should have stayed in Italy, where you belong. The entire restaurant was frozen. 40 people watching, waiting to see what Lucky would do. Everyone expected violence, expected Lucky to snap his fingers and have Coll killed on the spot, expected the chairman of the board to remind everyone why you don't disrespect him. Instead, Lucky did something that made Coll and everyone watching deeply uncomfortable. He smiled, not a friendly smile, a knowing smile, the smile of a man who's already seen how this story ends. Lucky set down his knife and fork, picked up his wine glass, took a slow sip. Then he looked at Coll and said 6 words. "You won't see next week." "That's all." 6 words, said calmly, matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. Coll's smile faltered. "What?" "You heard me," Lucky said. "Now get out of my sight before I change my mind and make it tonight instead." Coll tried to laugh it off. "You threatening me, old man?" Lucky didn't respond, just stared at Coll. That same cold, calculating stare that had made men disappear for 2 decades. Coll's bravado crumbled. Suddenly, he wasn't so drunk anymore. Suddenly, he remembered who he was talking to. He backed away. "Yeah, well, whatever. Enjoy your steak." Coll turned and left Gallagher's, walked out into the Manhattan night, convinced himself that Lucky was bluffing, that he'd won that confrontation. He hadn't. After Coll left, Frank Costello leaned over. "You want me to handle it tonight?" "No," Lucky said, cutting another piece of steak. "Let him sweat for a few days. Let him think, maybe I won't do anything. Then handle it." "You sure? Guy just disrespected you in front of 40 people." Lucky smiled. "Exactly. 40 witnesses. Everyone in this room just saw what happens when you disrespect me. They saw me stay calm. They saw me give him a warning. Now, when he disappears, everyone will know why. The lesson is better this way." Meyer Lansky nodded. "You want it to look like an accident?" "No," Lucky said. "I want it to look exactly like what it is. A message." For the next 3 days, Vincent Mad Dog Coll went about his business. He told himself Lucky was all talk, that Lucky was washed up, that nothing would happen. But deep down, Coll knew better. He started looking over his shoulder, started avoiding his usual spots, started sleeping in different places every night. On the 3rd day, Coll made a mistake. He went to see his girlfriend, an apartment in Hell's Kitchen. He thought he'd be safe there. Nobody knew about her, except his closest friends. But Lucky Luciano knew, because Lucky knew everything. September 26, 1947, 2:17 a.m. Coll left his girlfriend's apartment, started walking to his car. The street was empty, dark, quiet. That's when 2 men stepped out of the shadows. Coll reached for his gun. Too late. 6 shots, all to the chest. Coll dropped on the sidewalk, dead before he hit the ground. The 2 men walked away calmly, got into a car, disappeared into the night. Police found Coll's body at 3 a.m. 47 bullet wounds. 6 entry wounds meant they'd shot him again after he was down. Made sure he was dead. Made sure everyone understood this wasn't random violence. This was an execution. By morning, word had spread through the underworld. Vincent Mad Dog Coll, the guy who disrespected Lucky Luciano at Gallagher's, was dead. Exactly 72 hours after Lucky said he wouldn't see next week. The message was clear. You don't disrespect Lucky Luciano, not in public, not in private, not ever. But here's what made this different from other mob hits. Lucky didn't hide it, didn't make it look like an accident, didn't try to create distance. Everyone knew Lucky ordered it. That was the point, because Lucky understood something about power. Sometimes you need to remind people who's in charge, and the best way to do that isn't through fear alone. It's through demonstrating that your word means something. You won't see next week. Lucky said it, and 72 hours later it happened. That's power. That's authority. That's why Lucky Luciano ran the Mafia for 2 decades. The commission members who'd been at Gallagher's that night, who'd witnessed Coll's disrespect, got the message loud and clear. Lucky might be in exile in Italy, but he still ran New York, still controlled the commission, still had the power to reach out and eliminate anyone who challenged him. September 27th, 1947, the day after Coll's murder. The commission held an emergency meeting, all 5 families represented. They'd gathered to discuss the Gambino-Colombo dispute, the reason Lucky had returned to New York. But before they discussed business, Vito Genovese, Coll's boss, addressed the elephant in the room. "Lucky, about Vincent Coll." "Don't," Lucky interrupted. "Don't apologize. Don't make excuses. He worked for you. You should have controlled him. You didn't." "So I did." Genovese nodded. "Understood. Won't happen again. Make sure it doesn't, because the next time one of your people disrespects the commission or its members, I won't wait 3 days." The message wasn't just to Genovese. It was to everyone at that table. Lucky might be physically absent from New York, but his authority remained absolute. After the meeting, Frank Costello walked Lucky to his car, a black Cadillac that would take him back to the airfield, back to Italy, back to exile. That was handled well, Frank said. Coll was a problem anyway, too violent, too unpredictable. "It wasn't about Coll," Lucky said. "It was about the principle. The moment you let someone disrespect you publicly and don't respond, you lose authority. Doesn't matter if you're in New York or in Italy. Doesn't matter if you're active or retired. If you let it slide, everyone starts thinking you're weak, and weak men don't last long in this business." "Exactly." Lucky got in the car, rolled down the window for one last word. "Tell everyone what happened. Make sure they understand. I'm in Italy, but I'm still the chairman. I'm still in charge. And anyone who forgets that ends up like Coll." "They won't forget," Frank said. And they didn't. Lucky Luciano returned to Italy. He'd spend the rest of his life there, never allowed back in America. But his authority over the commission remained intact until his death in the story of Vincent Mad Dog Coll became a cautionary tale, told to young mobsters as a warning. Respect the hierarchy. Respect the old bosses, and never, never disrespect Lucky Luciano. You won't see next week. 6 words, 72 hours, 1 body. That's how Lucky Luciano reminded the world that exile doesn't equal irrelevance, that distance doesn't equal weakness, that the deadliest men aren't the ones who react immediately with violence. They're the ones who give you just enough time to hope you'll survive, and then prove you wrong. Vincent Coll's funeral was poorly attended. 3 people showed up: his girlfriend, his brother, 1 cousin. No mobsters, no friends, nobody from the life. Because showing up to Coll's funeral would have been seen as disrespecting Lucky's decision, and nobody wanted to be next. Gallagher's Steakhouse remained open until for decades. Tourists and mob history enthusiasts would come to sit at the table where Lucky Luciano had been sitting that night. The owner kept a small brass plaque under the table. September 23, 1947. Lucky Luciano. 6 words, 1 less. That plaque is now in a private collection. But the story lives on, because Lucky Luciano taught the Mafia, and taught the world something important about power. The most dangerous people aren't the loudest. They're the quietest. The ones who speak softly, and then follow through absolutely. You won't see next week. No anger, no shouting, no immediate violence. Just a calm statement of fact. And then 3 days later, that statement became reality. That's the difference between brutes and bosses, between thugs and leaders, between men who inspire fear and men who command respect. Lucky Luciano commanded respect, and anyone who forgot that, anyone who thought distance or exile had weakened him, ended up learning the hard way. Vincent Mad Dog Coll learned that lesson, but he didn't live long enough to share it. If this story about power, patience, and the deadliest responses moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you understand that silence can be more threatening than violence. Comment below, would you have handled it the same way Lucky did? Turn on notifications because next week we're revealing Lucky Luciano's final days in Italy and how he ran the Mafia from exile. Remember, in the underworld your word is everything, and Lucky Luciano's word was law, even from 4,000 miles.